Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to work on a Father's Day project, and I decided I'm going to engrave a design on one of these little tumblers I found just at Walmart. It's a coffee tumbler mug, and it's lined, it's got a ceramic lining, and on the outside it's just kind of this standard stainless steel, and it's got this coating on it. And I'm going to engrave on this. We're going to set up with the RA2 attachment for the S1, and we'll see how that process works, and engrave that design, and I'll have that design posted on Atom so you can download that and do the same project if you want. So hope you enjoy. Alright, so let's get set up. The first thing we need to do is go ahead and remove the honeycomb, and you can do that just simply by lifting that out and pulling it up from the front. And if you have it, this is always a good time, I think, to clean out the tray on the bottom. So we'll just push this on the riser base, the little button there to pop off this front plate, and we'll slide that out. So lots of gunk on there, so it's a good idea just to clean those off every so often. Alright, so here I've got just this little scrap piece of wood, like I mentioned, just kind of use it like a bench knife or something, and just scrape that off. So pretty straightforward, that cleans it up, that's good enough. Alright, back here on the laser, I'm taking this and putting it in the lowest notch on the riser base. So let's line that up, slide that all the way in the back, and then you want to close the front face to the riser base. Okay, so one thing about my tumbler is that it's not got a very flat shape, so that it's not square along the sides. And because of this taper, if I laid it in this configuration with the rollers, it's not going to set even, and it's going to kind of wobble a little bit and probably lose alignment. So for that reason, I'm going to configure the RA2 in the mode with the clamp. So alright, so just to have a little bit of a workspace, I've put this out on my workbench, and I've got all the pieces that I need to make the conversion to change the configuration of the rotary accessory. So we've got the base configuration. I got my little screwdrivers. Here's the chuck, and here's the parts for the chuck. I need to assemble the chuck on here, but first we need to remove these rollers. So what I do is on the end, there are these two screws here, so let's loosen those up. Oh, wrong. Back those screws out. Alright, now that whole assembly comes out. Alright, so we put our screws down in there, and before you mount that on, let's take and put the drive belt on, and then we'll hook it over that little sprocket down there. I think it's best to start with this first screw, and then it can still pivot a little bit, and then take and pull the chuck around so that this is lined up with the second screw hole, and then you can start tightening it down, and that puts the tension on the belt. It needs to be good and tight, so that way there's no room for it to slip. Alright, so looking at your tumbler, we want to attach it probably from the inside and use the chuck to press out. We might try it on the outside. Actually, let's try it on the outside. Let's see if we can open up the jaws wide enough to get a grip on it. Okay, so if you're new to this, the way the chuck works is just like a drill, like if you've got a DeWalt drill. If you take and rotate this on the back, it will make these 3 points widen or come together closer, so like that. And you have options on the way that you want to put these jaws on it. And what I want it to do is put it on so that way they're closing in on it, and I'll have to probably widen it out as wide as it'll go. So let's see if that'll work. So you can see it gets pretty wide. So we'll just have to put them on the outermost screw holes and see if it's got wide enough diameter to work. Alright, so perfect. I can take and set this in, and the cup is inside of all three of the grippers, or the little fingers that hold it in. And we can just use our hand to slowly tighten that in. And now you can see how this will work. And this is where this base will probably work just fine with the rollers removed. Okay, so looking at this configuration, I'm going to just remove these rollers and reattach this base to the actual motor part using the screws that we took out a minute ago. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because the cup is not long enough to interfere with these, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. So with that in place, you can see we've got plenty of clearance there. If this was interfering or hitting those, that's where I would use my base. I might do a video on that another time. If you all want to see that, definitely leave me a comment and I can create a video on doing tumblers that have handles without having to remove the handle. And again, just kind of snug. Again, just kind of do a snug tighten with it. That's sufficient to hold this thing together. Now, let's take and put our cup back in, like that. Whoops, in between all three of them. Push it. You want to make sure that the cup is all the way up against the backstop of that on all three of them. That ensures that it's square, and as it rotates, it's not going to have any wobble to it. So I'm pushing that all the way back nice and snug, and then we'll take the key for the chuck. One end goes in one of the little holes on the side, and then you just gently kind of tighten that in so you get a good snug fit. It doesn't have to be super tight. You can over tighten things, so just be careful about that. So I've got everything set up with the RA2 configuration, and I'm going to drop this down into the bed of the laser. We'll just set that in there about midways, and then we need to make the connection here to the laser so that way it can communicate to the RA2. It's just on the very top right of your machine. Okay, with that plugged in securely here, the laser should be ready to communicate with the RA2. And now let's get set up in the software. Alright, so in xTool Studio, there's a couple of things that you need to confirm as you're getting set up with the tumbler. So first thing is you need to change your mode over so that you're using the chuck. So I've already done that. I'm using the chuck of the rotary accessory. And then also choose your material. So I've chose the black tumbler. So not specifically the tumbler that I'm using, but the settings here will apply to the tumbler that I have. And then just to confirm down here, these are the setting of the power with, this is the 20 watt laser is at 40%. We're running at 120 millimeters per second. We're going to do one pass, and we're doing 120 lines per millimeter. All right. Now, another thing that we need to do is we need to take and rotate our image 90 degrees. And so one way to do that is right here. You can just type in 90 to get an exact rotation. And also keep in mind the orientation. So this is the left-hand side, the way that I've got it placed in the bed. The left-hand side is the smaller end of the cup, or the base of the cup, and the right hand side is the top or the opening of the cup, so this would be oriented the right way. So with our settings all figured out, the next thing we need to do is get the laser over here to the um, cup. We're going to get that right over here towards the front, and let's take a measurement of the height so that way we can focus it. Now, because of the taper, there is a little bit of a difference on the focal point, but I think we'll be okay as long as we try to keep the design closer to the upper part of the cup. If you were trying to get it lower, you may want to just take and move the laser down to the uppermost part of what you're going to try to engrave. So I think I'm going to keep it within this area here. I don't want it right up against the silver part of it. And we're going to create a marking area so we know where we're engraving on the device. So here we go in the software. Let's go ahead and click the measurement. We're going to get that now. Okay. So now we just kind of drop that in where it is. The next thing we probably want to do is measure the diameter of the cup. So, using your measuring tape that was included with the kit, you just take and wrap that around and get a measurement of the cup. Alright, so that did not work out. You can see how the image is squished. I did look into settings on the computer, and I think what I have done is I set it to be the diameter rather than the perimeter. Alright, so I think I figured out my mistake and the issue that I had that got the results on the tumbler. So I had set this up thinking millimeters, but these were actually centimeters that we're measuring on the tape. So decimal placement matters. So instead of 27.5, it's actually 275 millimeters and or 27.5 centimeters. And then also the setting here that you want this on the perimeter rather than the diameter. So that also does matter. All right, so we'll get set up with the other cup. We're gonna try to reach in here without blocking the camera, but we'll just slide that in, and we're going to go ahead and tighten down the chuck. Again, it doesn't have to be super, super tight. So everything should be pretty close to the same alignment. So all I need to do is go into the software. We'll do process again. And with everything lined up the way that it should be, let's hit framing. All that looks great, so let's go ahead, close the lid, and we're going to get set up to run the job. All right, awesome. So it completed this time. No issues as far as the proportions and everything, so I got all those settings just right. So let's go ahead and loosen the chuck, and we'll take that out and take a look at our finished product. All right, so just a little bit of a off burn because of the difference in the height, but we can wipe that off easily and take a look at it in just a second. Okay, so here we are just cleaning it up. and just kind of looking at the details now, you can see it's just a really good clean burn, and it worked out great. You can see the detail in the Trail 70 on the frame of the bike there. Looks awesome. Um, so I'm just really happy with that. Wish I would have got it right the first time, but this is looking good. Definitely acceptable and ready to go. All right, so there you have it. That was my experience in engraving on one of these little tumblers, coffee mugs from Walmart. Very inexpensive thing to get and to engrave. Really kind of bummed out that it didn't work out great on the first try, but that's what you get for not practicing something regularly. I feel like if I had been doing that, I would have caught that mistake. But so changes in the UI, changes in settings, sometimes it's easy to overlook that stuff. So moral of the story is always go back and take a look at your settings, um, run the framing, run the previews, and make sure everything looks right. So I should have caught that earlier on whenever it looked like it was very narrow, the design, but I just wasn't thinking about it and just working too fast. So take your time, double check everything, and that'll keep you from wasting materials. But the other cup turned out fine. I think I'm going to use it anyways, just myself. And then this one is good to go, and I think I'll definitely be giving this one for the Father's Day gift. So hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and come back for more videos on how to use your xTool laser and other laser engraving projects.